Coming up, Lav and I take a deep dive into the comings and goings at the Saudi International and debate whether if not the tour should be concerned. Welcome to Writer's Block. I'm Rex Hoggard. He's Ryan Lavner. Lav, you're back home after a week on the road. How is life in the Lavner house now? I know it's been touch and go the last few days.
It is. This is the COVID castle. I'm not yet positive, although I do feel some symptoms coming on. Kids are fine. Wife is fine. We're doing fine. I should have been co-hosting golf today, so thank you for holding down the fort for me.
I gave it my best shot. I had to suffer through I-4 traffic, so you're welcome. You owe me a few IPAs on that one. Let's get right to it. As I said, we're going to take a deep dive into what's going on at the Saudi International and Asian Tour event. A lot of top players there. 20 from the top 50 are there, but one stood out. Phil Mickelson, who had a press conference today and talked about how the rumored Super League, which is based on the idea that the Saudis are behind starting this global tour, how it could create leverage for PGA Tour players. Your thoughts?
Well, a couple of things, Rex. First of all, he's saying the quiet part out loud. This is what people like you and I have been saying for months now, that this is essentially just the players and the players' agents by extension just wanting to leverage the PGA Tour into a more powerful position for the players, whether that means guaranteed money, whether it means some sort of international series in the fall where they're guaranteed paychecks, whether it means bumping up the bonus for the player impact program or bigger purses for tournaments like the Players Championship. All of these things that have come to fruition, it probably was going to come to fruition anyway because of the new media rights deal, which kicked in at the beginning of 2022. But even the mere specter of these rival leagues has created a little bit of sense of urgency for the PGA Tour to examine some of its long-standing policies. Because, Rex, you know, PGA Tour has long been a meritocracy. Whatever you play, or however you play, whatever you shoot is what you are eventually going to take home. This kind of bucks that trend. It smashes that ideology of you're going to get guaranteed paydays in golf. Phil Mickelson is among those saying the quiet part out loud. This is leverage for the PGA Tour players. I'm not sure anyone actually wants to go to the Super League. They just want the guaranteed payday.
To your point, this was whispered about for 3 years. I remember being at the World Golf Championship in Mexico and a top player coming up and having this conversation with me and me assuming that, okay, that this is over because it was right after Rory had essentially drawn the line in the sand, so to speak, when he said he wants to be on the right side of history. And the player I was speaking to said absolutely not. He had no interest whatsoever in playing for whatever Super League the Saudis are going to come up with. But he pointed out this is the first time in the entire history of the PGA Tour that the players have true leverage. There is no union on the PGA Tour. There's a 16-player pack who can advise the policy board, and there's 4 players on the policy board, which is 9 people. So they don't even have a majority vote on their own policy board. Worth pointing out here, Phil Mickelson never served on that policy board. And so he's getting a chance to feel himself a little bit here. He's getting a chance to push back against the idea that, no, you don't own everything that I own. You don't own my entire likeness. And it goes to the whole idea with modern athletes that, look, they want to be empowered. They want to be in control of their future. And this is a perfect example of this. I don't blame Phil. I don't blame any of the other players because, as he pointed out and you pointed out, it's already produced. We would never have had the player impact program or any other things that you touched on had it not been for the rival league or even the rumor of a rival league. Now, as far as moving this forward, how concerned should the PGA Tour be when they hear a Phil Mickelson talking about these concepts?
Rex, you love saying rivalry. League. I was trying to help.
Nailed it.
We're trying to move some things along there.
Be a teammate there, will you please?
More power to you. And look, the PGA Tour should certainly be concerned because, as you mentioned at the top of the show, we have 20 of the top 50 players in the world ranking who are teeing it up in Saudi Arabia. Now, those players needed to get releases from either the DP World Tour or the PGA Tour in exchange on the PGA Tour. Those players are going to have to return to Pebble Beach at least once in the next 3 years. Although Xander Schauffele, who's one of those players who was granted the releases, he said, quote, "We'll see on whether he's going to hold up his end of the bargain." I'd love to get Jay Monahan on the line and see just how much he's going to enforce that. However, when you look at the releases and the procedures on the PGA Tour, players are not granted releases to play other tournaments in North America. I know Greg Norman, Live Golf, and this new Asian Tour commitment has grand plans, has grand ambitions for this new schedule. They just announced this 10-event international series that's going to be spanning the globe from London to Hong Kong, Singapore, where have you. I'm sure that they're eventually going to have plans to have an event in the United States. It's still so far off the line, still far down the line, that it's not an imminent threat to the PGA Tour. But these guys are throwing around stupid money, Rex. The Telegraph reported that Ian Poulter was offered upwards
$30 million.
$30 million to spurn the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour to join the Saudi-backed league. $30 million for a guy who has won once in the past decade and is in his 40s. If Ian Poulter is being offered $30 million, I shudder to think what a Phil Mickelson, what a Dustin Johnson, players of that ilk would potentially take home if they were to spurn the tours.
You're absolutely right. This is maybe the first brick in the house that Greg Norman, Live Golf, Super League, whatever it is trying to build. This is just what they're trying to come up with, a concept to move forward from here. And it's a good first step. It's 10 events. It's going to get world ranking points. It's decent purses, not great purses when you look at
I mean, it's $2 million to
$1.5 to $2 million, which is more than Korn Ferry
nothing.
Tour and less than PGA Tour. So somewhere in between there, which I think
way
is going
less than PGA Tour.
The part that gets me
opposite field on the PGA Tour. The Puerto Rico
yeah,
Open,
so it's
3.5.
3.5. Yeah. But the part that gets me is the ultimate flex of whatever this international series is going to be, holding one of those events in London at a golf course that is 31 miles away from the headquarters of the DP World Tour. Now, that would be, if we were to spin this forward, having one of these events in St. Augustine with Ponte Vedra right there breathing down your neck. So I think it's an early shot across the bow, but it's a shot across the bow the tour is going to pay attention, because I really think somewhere down the line, this doesn't go away, and this becomes a real threat that the tour will have to address. All right, Haley has taken away the headline bar, so that means move on. We will move on to the PGA Tour in their event this week at Pebble Beach. What are you watching for?
I was going to watch for the Will Zalatoris bounce back, talking to him on Saturday night. Rex, quite frankly, he was pissed off. He could not wait. In fact, I asked him, how long is this going to take you to get over? He said he could not wait to get to Pebble Beach. Unfortunately, he arrived at Pebble Beach, and then he promptly departed Pebble Beach because he tested positive for COVID on Tuesday. Best wishes to Will Zalatoris. Hope it is little more than a sniffle. So was Will Zalatoris and the bounce back out of the question? All eyes to me are on Jordan Spieth. Battled. He did not look good if you were paying attention to the coverage last week at the Farmers Insurance Open. Second round, 78. Wore black pants because he needed it. He had a bacterial infection, was not doing well. Century Tournament of Champions at the beginning of the year, had sinus infection. Dude's just been going through the ringer over the past 4 to 6 months, and now he returns to a place at Pebble Beach where he's had a lot of success, 5 top 10s and 9 career appearances there. To me, this is the Jordan Spieth show, AT&T ambassador. I'm really curious to see how he plays.
Did poor Will stop at your house on his way to Pebble Beach? Are you patient zero on that chain?
Cam and Lily just giving him hugs and kisses, and now he unfortunately contracted COVID as well. No, he did not.
I'm going to go with another player who has been struggling of late. It's Jason Day, and he had a decent week last week. And the thing that stood out to me,
decent week, he had a tie for the 54-hole lead.
Like I said, it was a decent week. We're talking about a major championship winner, so I'm going to keep that relative to what he's done over the course of his career.
3.5 years. It was a very encouraging week.
It was a very encouraging week, and statistically is why I'm going to go with that, because if you look at what he does best, and I kind of broke this down this morning on Golf Today, he's always middle of the range ball striker. As long as he can be somewhere right around even when it comes to strokes gained, as far as approach to the green and fairways and greens hit, he's fine. It's where the putting comes into play. And last week he was 7th in strokes gained putting. More to the point, he made 49 out of 51 putts from 10 feet in. That's the Jason Day we're used to. Now, can he hold up 3 weeks in a row with all the injuries he's had? So I think for double reasons, I'm going to keep a very close eye on Jason Day, because he could be trending in a very cool direction, and this could be a very, very key week to figure out where he's at.
Yeah, it is very interesting too, Rex. Talking to him last week, he's been working with swing coach Chris Como, Bryson DeChambeau's coach, for more than a year now. He has to do things differently. His body will not allow him to have that violent swing that we saw in 2015, 2016, really the prime of Jason Day's career. So you're right. He's going to have to do things differently. Can't just rely on that red-hot putter. He's going to have to make some changes with his ball striking and just get a little bit more consistent if he wants to hang with the best in the world.
This will be the toughest part of the show for you, always week in and week out. Let's do rapid fire. Bryson DeChambeau, what concerns do you have that he's going to get re-injured after whatever it is that happened to him at Torrey Pines?
I have a lot of concern. He withdrew before the Sony Open because of the wrist issue. It clearly flared up in the second round of the Farmers Insurance Open. Did not receive a single word of his status update ahead of the Saudi Invitational from his manager. Yeah, I'm concerned. I think it's a big risk.
And he was not on the interview schedule, so we weren't allowed to ask him. Yes, there's obviously concerns. We talked about this last week. I think it's only going to be growing concerns because the entire narrative around Bryson DeChambeau is, yes, this is cool. It's really awesome what he's doing and trying to reinvent the game, but can his body withstand this? I don't think any of us expected this to happen so soon. So we're going to keep a close eye.
Wrist is a big deal.
Wrist is a big deal. He grabbed his back, too. I think there's a couple of things going on. I think you've already answered this question, but Jordan Spieth, top 10 this week or no?
I'm going to go with no, and I hesitate while saying that. The only reason I say no, Jordan Spieth has lost strokes gained tee to green 6 of his last 7 starts on the PGA Tour day into the fall. Just in a little bit of a funk now. Now, if he can find it, this is a good place to do it. But these 3 courses in the rotation for the Pebble Beach National Pro-Am, they're really going to put an exacting measure on his ball striking. I don't think it's quite up to snuff yet. So no.
I'm going to go no as well. As I pointed out, I think in a podcast this week, that look, last year was exhausting for him. And I'm not quite sure he was fully recovered. And then whatever it is that happened to him last week with the stomach flu probably doesn't help. So I don't see Black Pants. I don't see a top 10 in his future. All right, big finish here today. This week is the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. The amateurs are always a huge part of this. The celebrity amateurs are a huge part of this. If you could pick one celebrity to play with in this event, who would it be?
Thought long and hard about this.
Did
Rex,
you?
My first choice would be Olivia Culpo for obvious reasons. My second choice would be Matt Pittman, who you probably do not know from Meat Church Barbecue. He is a social media influencer. He is a barbecue coach. Watch him religiously on YouTube. Follow everything he does on Instagram. I have some of his apparel. I'll wear it next week on the show if you would so like. So yes, Matt Pittman to me is the coolest dude in barbecue. I'd love to spend not just 5 hours with him playing Pebble Beach. Spend the first 3 days with him.
I feel like everyone had to Google both of those answers.
Grill sponsor, grill sponsor, grill sponsor.
I see what you're doing there. Mine changed today, and I was co-hosting Golf Today this morning. If you would have asked me this yesterday.
Is Shane Bacon your celebrity partner now?
He is not, but he is definitely a good teammate, better than you. I'm going to point that out. No, if you'd asked me yesterday, I'd had a much different answer, but we had Mia Hamm on the show, who is playing in the celebrity portion of the Pro-Am this week. And I got to be honest with you, I've gotten to interview some very, very, very cool people in my career. I'm very, very lucky on that front. I don't think I've ever been so nervous as I was going into this interview this morning. What she has done, not just for soccer, but for soccer in America, and the way she made the game cool. When you look at what her and the rest of that gold medal winning team and that World Cup winning team did for soccer, I think you could probably say Tiger did the same thing for golf. So she's cool. She's awesome. She's my pick.
Oh, very interesting choice. Certainly a prisoner of the moment, but I respect it.
Maybe.
Very good choice.
All right, maybe. You get some rest. I know you're coming from ground zero in the COVID house in Ponte Vedra Beach.
TikTok on COVID. Here it comes.
Please, because we're supposed to huddle again on Sunday night when we will recap this week at Pebble Beach, Saudi International, everything else in the world of golf. We'll see you then.